Hey, Squachel. My name is Sisanook. That is my traditional Indian name. My English name is Jerome Thomas. I'm the elected chief of the Esquimalt Nation. I'm here representing Esquimalt Nation and welcoming you to our territories of the Lekwungen people, Esquimalt and Songhees Nation. Haichka. Welcome, everyone. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see you all here. My name is Terry. I'm from the Songhees Nation. I would like to welcome you all here at the Conference Center here in Victoria, BC, for a really important day. I squeecho as a Dutchie or Terry. My family and I would like to welcome each and every one of you here today. We're very excited and very proud to be a part of this event for today. There's a lot of big things going on, and I'm sorry, I'm just looking for what I wrote for, if you really want to know. There's been so much. My late mother was Janet Dick. Skip Dick and Butch Dick are my maternal uncles, who I not only love and admire, but have inspired me to start this journey that I am on. To all the relations that I see in the room, I would also like to say, Equantus Kuna Lahela. On behalf of my family and myself, welcome here today. Welcome to the lands of Lekwungen people, lands of smoked herring. We are on the lands of Lekwungen people. We are a joint nation of Songhees and Esquimalt. We were one before treaties and borders. I would like to thank everybody that took part today to have this to happen. I am new at finding my voice, but I know this work needs to get done. Asiyam Nachalacha, Esadachi or Terry, to Ethlason at Lekwungen, Haichka Kwansla Etla, Haichka Kwansla Techo at Alanuk at Lekwungen, Haichka CM. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Okay, they want me to use this. We have just the one more song to do, and it's the prayer song. This was taught to us by our late elder, Ray Peter from Cowitson. And we always like to try and keep somebody in our hearts and in our minds that needs that little bit of an uplift. So if you have somebody that you want, think of them while we sing this song.
Welcome. Tamane lagafi. Koyanako. Taip kuat kamarigirut uwaptitning. Tamaunga tungayuk titluting uwaptitning. Koyanakon. I would like to welcome our hosts, thank the hosts that have taken very good care of us since we've been here. And I brought the medicines that were given to me yesterday. And they are very, very special medicines for me. So my name is Martha Peet, and up until I was about 6 years old, I was Tutkanatjak. That was my name given to me at birth. Inuit were always given one name. My name was Tutkanatjak. My grandmother's name was Tutkanatjak. So Inuit naming system is passing down the names. So, and then the missionaries came, and we were required to have, they told us we had to have an English name. So my mom and dad chose the name Martha. And when I'm down here, down south, I'm known as Martha, but back home, it's either Tutkanatjak or Tutkak. So that's my name. And the day has arrived. I want to thank all those people who looked after me prior to that for months. I want to thank them from my heart because I have been so well looked after in every way. And all the help I was given, never forgotten. I was thought of first and then helped to the table to eat or that. And I'm very thankful to that. And so I would like to say thank you to everybody that's here, everybody that's all over Canada. And I was born and raised way up in Nunavut, Arctic coast, little tiny community of Taloriak, which is way up along the Arctic coast. And it's about when you get traveling up north and you land in Yellowknife, it's about 4 or 5 hour flight from Yellowknife. That gives you a little bit of an idea where I come from. And I have been living in Winnipeg for the past 34 years. I guess, in a way, Winnipeg is my home. But the north, the strength my mom and dad had in teaching me about everything, the laws, the Inuit laws. And for a while there, when I was very young, I lost my strength. I was not happy until I started thinking back on my mom and dad were so strong. And then I realized that they gave me strength my grandparents, my ancestors. So today I'm going to be lighting the Qulliq, which is the seal oil lamp. And for hundreds and hundreds of years before the people from overseas or south came up north, we relied on Qulliq for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it was our source of heat, our source of warmth in an igloo, in a snow house. And it was our only source for making hot water for tea, which the tea we collected from the land. And drank it for tea. When my mom was lighting the Qulliq, she wouldn't use as many matches. So I feel very strong about teaching about the Qulliq because we didn't rely on any southern products like for fuel or wick to use a Qulliq. Inuit are self-reliant, and the oil, the fuel for the Qulliq, which is in the soapstone, the men would make a Qulliq out of soapstone, and it's got a vessel. It's made from soapstone. And so this is a show size, the original size, the real Qulliq, not a showpiece that we use every day in the igloos, were about that wide. And so because for two reasons. I want the people who live down south, such as Winnipeg or all over, it doesn't usually burn this much, but because of the fan, it's kind of going all over. And the fuel comes from the seal blubber. It's about that thick, and my dad would cut them about so big, and we would use a rock to pound the seal blubber, and when we pound it, the fat, which is solid, but very oily, it turns into liquid when we pound it. So we put the liquid oil here, and when we do that, what's left over from what we pounded of a seal blubber, It is given to the husky dogs for food, strength. And so I like to teach Qulliq. Maybe, who knows? We relied on this for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's really important that it's still taught, because we don't know what's in the future for energy and that. But everything I'm using here is from the land. Way before the stores, way before people started traveling from the other side of the world, that we were using this. And so it's lit all the time. The flames are never off. My mom would burn just a little bit of the corner while we sleep in an igloo. And then in the morning, she fixed the flames so that they don't burn so much soot. And then she would put a kettle over it. And then that heats up, we put our tea in there, and that's the first thing we eat in the morning. And it was years later when the stores came that we were able to fry bannock over it also. And if we wanted to cook any meat, because some days we ate a lot of frozen fish, frozen caribou, but if we want to have something cooked, especially the elders quite often wanted change. So my mom would put water in a pot and put fillets of fish in there. Steaks of fish in there in the water and boil them. And same way with seal meat, we boiled it and ate it. So I think I was about 8 years old when I first ate anything done in the oven. So everything I drank or ate was done, heated and cooked with a Qulliq. And the wick comes from Arctic cotton, and it grows all over the Arctic. Thank you. Thank you very much. And the wick, Arctic cotton, is a white cotton on a long stem, usually in the swampy areas or wet areas. And there's a cotton, white cotton, that grows on top of there. And it blooms in about August. It's ready for picking in August. So we pick the cotton, we leave the root in the water, pick the cotton, and we would collect lots, enough to last us a whole year. And if we run out, if other people run out, we share. Quite often, we run out, and we use other plants that could burn when saturated in oil. So I wanted to teach you today about our traditional way of life And again, thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Merci ngay tawak tamawok. Utagawigit sa kay sinuak. Iwisam ko ya ko tapiwitap mo ya ko. Iwas mina imias sige ko hewan magamamawyatiak kiano. Iwas mina kwes ni miuhti ni wisam gawian anos. Nista mina Qulliq tuhtian ugo aya qarqageyaatsak dal qalwista omina yutuit mago iqwasta ya tamiuitihtoya khasta tamiasin imiasakewanma iqwa aya utiuhtinia sakta wahurtidiagautuhtiana ailla crossiqatiu imstugusimu Iwa kwes ni miuhtinigi piwisamgawian ogok maskihkiuskuiwak maskihkiuisinuwakastse aya tawitap magwaw iwasta tayo mutamak kiway uma igakwes kauchis-paikayahti iwa angik le rouge le chef la livière Red River, Métis, igunengi sinuak, igutawistawag yuhtuhtiitsik uma northwest kaisihati, Saskatchewan wasta Manitoba, Alberta stamina. Igu mihched mago, igunagapihtogus salang sweet iwig waktaskinaw, muya gutapuiwigitsik. Iwasta minaya, igtomaga tuhtiya humagieno, Mstehigi wektayano. Yawan mochte kanse tohtatoya kikwastimina kwayesigo kitagima mistsia kiksisigi pisupigia kistano. Tapskuzen gig. Kausihtatsik masksinamana. Yawaste imaklak mina manausihiokskuyok. Imikstehigitsik yuhi miasik yawanma. Tohtsikin stohtagauno. Yawastimina awaya la violon mina kaktuhtigit awa kawigituhtigit yagutamina uhtsayanma kagiuhtsapayaganma Red River jig kasihkatik mana yagutagiuhtsapayaganma yagwast le pavillon mina mana gaya le pavillon ktayanaw Métis le Métis Red River Métis uhtsa yawanma pavillon kayayak. Yagumina potasagihtaja minä wan makienoan muhtsiuksisen meidän stuhtagawayak kistanomina. Iwasti minä ja kueskumas kausiuin ktajano kipi ugo kajahtiuhtsa tapskuts Jim Sinclair ugo Lafontaine minä piagisika supiak. Jim Carrier mina piagisi kaso. Yagunen gayasi gini ganista ko apihtokussana ipasugunatsik. Yagunen puigawe katawon skisutawayako. Yawa ayemina skihti mina umal rouge la livière ma chef anusumagaya. Muy wayeskuspis pamihigauno. Kayahti. Iwakiapits anus oma putamamtunihta mahigunen he kiwaya igagoyesiuhtspir pamihiguya ko Huwag maskikiwin wak. Iwas to maskikiwskuwak. Iwas to yawshuma maskikiwin maskikiga pamihtatsik. Lilaptalek sisigiway. Iwa mage wa kwesnin stuhtine wa piagiway. Pugutapuiwin tapatihtayak. Iksise pugagaskihtalo maskausiwin tayak. Tamamawatoskiyak. Utiat nigan. I want to thank the Coast Salish people for welcoming us to their territory. It's been really beautiful and wonderful, and I just immensely enjoyed the young people that were dancing here for us today, and the songs and the way they welcomed us. We thank you so very, very much for that. And I want to welcome each and every one of you, of course. And it's important that we come together in a good way. We have to come together in a good way. That's very, very important. As some of the elders were talking this morning, one of the things that stuck out in my mind is life. Life is a journey. You can't go under it. You can't go on top of it. You can't go on the side of it. You just have to go right through it. It's a very important lesson. And I want to, it's really stuck out in my mind. And I want to welcome as well the Two-Spirit folks that are here and their family members as well. So I want to welcome each and every one of you. There was some of them were around here earlier, and I talked to a few of them. In fact, I had lunch with a couple of them, I think. And I'm fortunate, I am very fortunate to be here today as a day school survivor amongst all the other survivors that are here. I am a Métis elder. I am 84 years old. I was born in 1940. And I was raised by my grandparents. In the old days, the firstborn was always adopted by the grandparents. That's the way our tradition was. And but we lived really close together. My grandparents were just a couple of, maybe a block away or something like that. And it was kind of thing that they did. There was no social services, there was no adoption agencies and all that kind of stuff. None of that mattered. We had our own ways, our own laws, and our own ways of doing things. And the reason they did that, of course, is their kids were all gone. They were kind of lonely, and they wanted a kid to raise. And those of us that were raised by our grandparents were very fortunate because we got a little bit spoiled. And I remember I had a little suitcase. If I didn't get my way at my grandparents, I'd move my suitcase over to my mom and dad's. And then if I didn't get my way there, I'd move back again. And that was kind of funny. Anyway, that's what happened, to me. But it's a great honor as well. I want to emphasize that very, very clearly here today. It's a great honor to ask me and guiding the Canadian Medical Association down the path of reconciliation with our people. That is a great honor, and I don't take that lightly. I now have been meeting with a lot of my people in my community, particularly the elders and the ladies. Very, very important. They have a lot of information. My wife was one that was forced sterilization, and we went through that, of course, and it happened. And there was a lot of those kind of things that somehow we need to deal with. My wife passed away about 8 years ago. We were dealing with cancer for quite some time, but we were blessed with a lot of kids, and now I have grandchildren, and I have great-grandchildren. And for some reason, I prefer my great-grandchildren to my children. At least they accuse me of that all the time anyway. But I think it's important, being born in the Red River Valley, our nation is a proud one that expresses our rich culture through beautiful flower work, flower beadwork. And my mother used to sit down for hours and hours beading, making moccasins, mucklucks, jackets, and all of those kind of things. Our ancestral Michif language is very, very important to us. That's what makes us who we are. And the joyous sounds of the Métis fiddle. This gentleman is going to be showing us what it sounds like. And that music inspired the Red River Jig. You have all danced the Red River Jig, I know that. Our infinity flag is a symbol of our social, political, and economic self-determination. As a Red River Métis, a strong legacy which has been passed down through our ancestral kinship ties, empowering new generations. Despite the strength and prosperity of the Red River Métis today, the legacy of colonization has left scars on our people that can be seen to this day. Although Canadians believe healthcare is a fundamental human right, Indigenous peoples have consistently been met with routine discrimination at the hands of the medical professionals in Canada. That is a truth. We have to have truth before we can have reconciliation. That is the truth. I have always believed we need to know the truth before we can have reconciliation. I've always believed in that. By issuing this formal apology, the Canadian Medical Association has taken the first steps in its commitment to seeking the truth. It's just a first step. It's going to be a long process. Kinwes kanutsih tanaw, tagawimi sa huswe, tagawimi oyayak. It's going to take a long time because there's a lot of damage and harm that was done to our people. And many of them to this day will not even address that. They will not admit it. Many, I know many. And that's the fact of the matter. We need the truth first. And I'm so happy that the Canadian Medical Association has taken the first steps. I look forward to working with the Canadian Medical Association as the truth guides their efforts to improve Indigenous health outcomes towards the path of reconciliation with us. And I want to thank each and every one of you for listening to me today, and I wish you great tidings, and please have a safe journey home. And I want to thank all of the people, the Coast Salish people that welcomed us here today. Merci. And now it gives me a great honor and a pleasure to introduce a good friend of mine, Jason Lepine, and he's going to play us an example of why we are Métis. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Alika Lafontaine. I'm Red River Métis and past president of the Canadian Medical Association from 2022 to 2023. As the first Indigenous physician to lead the association in 156 years, I have to say how powerful it is to have begun today in this way. Bon après-midi, Alika Lafontaine, de Shini Kashun Gi Ni Ta Wakin, Pi Upikin, Regina, Saskatchewan, Ni Mushum Napoleon Lafontaine, Ushji Lestock, Saskatchewan, Ma Pranti Li Fagnan Li Potra, Pi Denomi, and Dr. Nia Dan Lenore di Alberta, Datushkan. Merci to the Lekwungen traditional dancers for your performance, and to Chief Jerome Thomas from Esquimalt Nation for your generous welcome. We are grateful for the space you've made for us on your territory and for your generous welcome. Today, as the Canadian Medical Association takes this important step forward, we also have a special thank you to Elders Martha Peet and Jimmy Durocher for helping guide the CMA on its journey of reconciliation and for your support as we continue this journey. Thank you to Jason Lepine for your inspired fiddle playing. We also want to thank everyone who traveled here today to witness the CMA's journey of reconciliation. We also know there are many joining us via live stream, and we welcome you as well. Whether you are here in person or online, you are the most important part of today. I'd like to take this moment to acknowledge all survivors, whether in this room or online. I'd now like to ask my CMA colleagues, Drs. Reimer, Paula Cashin, and Santanna Hernandez, to join me on stage. In our roles, we all participate in the highest levels of leadership at the Canadian Medical Association. I am proud to call them friends and colleagues, and they'll take this moment to introduce themselves.
Hello. My name is Santanna Hernandez. I am a Dene woman from the Qulliq First Nation and the Lepine Nation on my father's side and Dutch ancestry on my mother's side. I would also like to acknowledge the Stolo Nation, the Sinixt, the Syilx, the Ktunaxa, and the ʷəŋiʔnəŋ nations, where I was privileged to grow up and raise my 4 beautiful children. I feel immense gratitude to be back here on the territory of the Songhees and Esquimalt peoples, where I completed one of the first steps on my journey to become a physician and completed my Bachelor of Indigenous Social Work here at the University of Victoria. Because of the incredible generosity of the elders and their teachings of these lands, I was given the tools and the skills that I have to serve me and my patients well. As we enter our time together, I'm thinking of the power of water. My communities are lake and river people, and today we are on the shores of the mighty ocean. My elders taught me during time of healing to go to the water and let it cleanse you. Like it does for Mother Earth, let it wash away and start new. Let the water give life to new growth. That's why we gather here today, to begin a healing process and foster new growth. Masicho, thank you for being here with us today, and thank you for being on this journey with us.
Good afternoon. My name is Paula Cashin. I'm a Mi'kmaq physician from Newfoundland and a member of the Halibut Mi'kmaq First Nation. I'm a proud descendant of Matty Mitchell, a well-known Mi'kmaq chief and prospector. His incredible knowledge of the land and waterways made significant contributions to the development of the Newfoundland economy and culture. In 2001, he was recognized as a person of national historic significance. His legacy lives on, and I am incredibly fortunate to be part of a family and Mi'kmaq community that carved paths for many generations. Likewise, it is an honor to be here today as we carve a path towards wellness for Indigenous peoples, a path that is being co-created by the CMA and Indigenous leaders, experts, elders, and knowledge keepers from coast to coast to coast.
Hello, my name is Joss Reimer. I am a public health physician and president of the Canadian Medical Association. I was born in a settler family in the same Red River Valley that we just heard Elder Jimmy talking about. My father moved to Canada as a young child. My mother was born in Canada, but to a settler family. And my ancestors have lived around the world in Russia, Serbia, Scotland, China, and Holland. Myself, I have lived in Vancouver, Hamilton, Calgary, Switzerland, Costa Rica, and Ecuador, but today I live in Winnipeg, the original lands of the Anishinaabe, the Aniniwak, the Unsinaniwak, the Dakota Oyate, and the Dene people, as well as we just heard, the homeland of the Red River Métis. I am so thankful to those Indigenous peoples who have been the caretakers and have welcomed me and my family to be able to live, work, and play in those lands. And today I'm particularly thankful to all of the elders, the knowledge keepers, the Indigenous experts, community members, survivors, and my colleagues who have joined us today and who have supported the CMA to take this step in a good way.
As we begin the presentation, we remind guests in person and online that there are resources available if you need emotional support. In the room with us, we have mental health and cultural workers from Tsao Tun Leilam Society who will be offering counseling, brushing, and smudging throughout the day. This morning, we lit a sacred fire at Mungo Martin House that will continue to burn until the end of the day. For those of you watching online, there are national wellness resources available in the YouTube description. We will now begin the apology presentation. The CMA is one of the oldest institutions in Canada. Founded in 1867 by 164 physicians who gathered at the Grand Hall of Laval University in Quebec City, it had the goal of elevating standards of care for patients. In the early 1900s, the CMA campaigned for the Canadian Medical Act, which introduced a standard medical licensing and registration program across Canada, ensuring all practicing physicians met standards to protect patient safety. In 1911, the association launched the Canadian Medical Association Journal to support new research, keep physicians up to date on breakthroughs in the field, and share ideas and opinions. In the face of the 1918 influenza epidemic and a persistently high infant mortality rate, the CMA led the charge to create the Federal Department of Health, which is known today as Health Canada. The association later spurred the creation of the Canadian Cancer Society to raise awareness, promote research, and improve treatment options. When SARS struck in 2003, the CMA's call for national action resulted in a new Public Health Agency of Canada. Like most Canadian institutions, the CMA has played a role in Canada's history of racism, discrimination, and segregation of Indigenous peoples. Today, the CMA is taking an important step in its reconciliation journey with Indigenous peoples. After years of internal work, the CMA is sharing and owning its history. We recognize this apology may reopen wounds and re-traumatize First Nation, Inuit, and Métis individuals, families, and communities who have and continue to experience harms in Canada's healthcare system. In Indigenous health, there are First Nations, Inuit, and Métis patients, families, and communities who govern and guide health systems in partnership with Indigenous healthcare providers, both traditional and non-traditional. On the other side are tables of decision makers, academics, policymakers, and advocacy organizations where Indigenous voices may be tokenized or absent. We need bridge builders to close the distance between these two sides, a role that I and other Indigenous leaders see taking on in this reconciliation process. While Paula, Santanna, and I don't take on the CMA's history in the same way as our non-Indigenous colleagues, it is necessary that we stand alongside them so our organization walks the path of reconciliation in a good way and gets things right. There is a lesson in reconciliation I've observed since the release of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada's final report in 2015. In these two-sided relationships, the weight of history needs to be shared. If it is carried only by one side, Indigenous peoples advocating for attention and action to change unjust and inequitable behavior, policies, or legislation, or non-Indigenous peoples trying their best to do the same, one side will eventually break. There are parts of history that Indigenous peoples must leave for settlers to carry. But there are many places where it's appropriate and needed for us to share the weight of change. We are lifting together so the CMA can keep moving forward. We as Indigenous peoples and leaders within this organization believe the CMA authentically wants to change. We walk with our colleagues on the path of reconciliation together, standing where we should stand and speaking what should be said. We are grateful to the bridge builders both inside the CMA, the Indigenous Guiding Circle, consultants, advisors, and staff, and outside the CMA for your efforts to bring us to today. I'll now invite Dr. Hernandez to talk about the CMA's journey of reconciliation.
The CMA has never been the owner or operator of any provincial, territorial, or federal healthcare system. Before the establishment of the first medical insurance plan in Saskatchewan in 1962, healthcare was a patchwork of private, nonprofit, and charitable systems. However, physicians working within those health systems held great power, and they continue to do so today in Canada's healthcare system. First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people were provided segregated care within the Indian Hospital Program, which the federal government operated from the 1930s onward, a program that was defunded and absorbed into provincial and territorial health systems in the 1970s and 1980s. As publicly funded healthcare system spreads across Canada, a principled approach to funding was implemented through the 1984 Canada Health Act. The CMA remained a key voice in advocating for the needs of Canadians. It would take the failure of the 1987 Meech Lake Accord and the subsequent Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples in 1991 for the CMA to acknowledge that in its advocacy for the needs of Canadians, it had failed to recognize or account for the needs of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis patients, families, and communities. This in turn spurred the CMA to begin Indigenous-specific advocacy in the 1990s, led by Dr. Vince Tukane, Ojibwe from the Bidigan-Nishnabek and past president of the Native Physicians Association of Canada, a precursor to the Indigenous Physicians Association of Canada. Small-scale projects would follow, along with the intermittent public statements that showed a growing acknowledgement of the physical, psychological, cultural, and spiritual harms experienced by First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people through interactions with the provincial, territorial, and federal healthcare systems. Then came a series of reports from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, the National Inquiry into the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, Dr. Allen and Smiley's paper, First People, Second-Class Treatment, and the In Plain Sight report out of British Columbia. These and other reports continued to amplify the need for the CMA to accelerate and expand its efforts in reconciliation. In 2020, the CMA adopted a long-term strategy framework called Impact 2040 that focused on achieving impactful and inclusive system-level change. The CMA Board of Directors prioritized Indigenous health and ensured this work would be Indigenous-led. In 2022, the CMA invited First Nation, Inuit, and Métis elders, knowledge keepers, and experts to guide the development of an Indigenous health goal to clearly define the work ahead of us. An important step that this Indigenous Guiding Circle recommended was for the CMA to review its past and acknowledge the harms First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples experienced in the healthcare system. This would lead to an apology by the CMA as the national voice of physicians for harms experienced by First Nation, Inuit, and Métis individuals, families, and communities. That history is what brought us here today. Dr. Cashin will now speak to the CMA's Historical and Ethical Review report.
In preparation for this apology, the CMA underwent a multi-year process to review its archives, social media accounts, parliamentary debates, and committee records. An ethic review of these records was completed on the basis of the CMA Code of Ethics and Professionalism and other key codes and norms that outline the ethical and professional commitments and responsibilities of the medical profession. The Canadian Medical Association Journal, the CMAJ, is in the process of conducting a similar review of its contents in partnership with the National Collaborating Centre for Indigenous Health, the results of which will be available in 2025. The historical review revealed that the CMA contributed to systemically embedding and upholding anti-Indigenous racism in healthcare, thus creating an unsafe environment for Indigenous peoples, patients, and communities. Specific examples of the harms the medical system caused Indigenous peoples include the following. The Indian hospital system embedded systemic racism and discrimination in the Canadian health system by fostering racial segregation and conditions where Indigenous patients received substandard and unsafe care. Patients were subjected to abuse, experimental treatments, and forced and coerced sterilization. Although most Indian hospitals are now closed, the country is still in the process of moving away from the segregated, racist healthcare model that the Indian hospital system perpetuated to one where Indigenous peoples have self-determination over their health and healthcare. Medical experimentation was conducted on Indigenous children in residential schools, including studying the effects of malnourishment and withholding necessary care. Medical experimentation was conducted on Indigenous adults, including studying the effects of nutritional interventions and testing experimental tuberculosis vaccines and treatments. We still do not know the full extent of medical experimentation on Indigenous children or adults. Inuit who were forced to relocate to tuberculosis sanatoriums far from their homes without community support, without their informed consent, and against their wishes. Many patients died, and their remains were never returned home. Indigenous women, some men, and Two-Spirit people underwent forced and coerced sterilization outside the Indian hospital system. Some reports suggest that this has happened as recently as 2019. There has been a lack of sustained, meaningful commitment by the medical system to advance the health of Indigenous women, men, and Two-Spirit people, and this has led to ineffective advocacy and work. The medical system has a history of exhibiting and accepting racist, colonial, and paternalistic attitudes towards Indigenous peoples. Many Indigenous peoples suffered mistreatment and lack of care. In many cases, this led to ongoing health issues and death. The CMA also fell short of ethical norms and standards of the medical profession. For example, it had a duty to use its privileged position and voice as a healthcare leader in Canada to report circumstances preventing physicians from providing the highest standard of care. The CMA failed to do this for residential schools and Indian hospitals, and we did not address the countless barriers that Indigenous peoples experience in accessing healthcare. The CMA had a fundamental ethical obligation to put the well-being and welfare of the patient over physicians' interests. A key example of the CMA's failure in this regard was its focus on physician financial compensation over care provided to Indigenous peoples in the first half of the 20th century. The CMA failed to educate or inform itself about the realities and rights of Indigenous peoples living in Canada, even when advocates made efforts to draw attention to the deplorable treatment of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples in health systems and residential schools. The CMA also acknowledges that harm to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples continues. Racism and negative stereotypes of Indigenous peoples continue to impact the quality of care that medical professionals provide to Indigenous peoples. Medical providers and organizations are ill-informed about the health-related realities and rights of Indigenous peoples in Canada. Medical providers and organizations have yet to fully recognize, respect, and honor Indigenous knowledge-led solutions to support Indigenous perspectives in health, including Indigenous wellness and healing practices. Medical providers and organizations fail to listen, support, and amplify the voices of Indigenous peoples and providers. There is still limited and/or complete lack of access to healthcare services, particularly for Indigenous peoples living in rural, remote, and northern communities. Indigenous peoples continue to experience profound harm and vast intergenerational impacts as a result of the 60 Scoop, which saw many thousands of Indigenous children and youth forcibly removed from hospitals and their families, cultures, and communities, and they were placed in non-Indigenous foster or adoptive homes in Canada and around the world. Some medical providers and organizations were responsible for or complicit in these abductions and continue to play a role in ongoing child apprehension practices, such as birth alerts. Systemic racism in the medical field has contributed to the mistrust of the profession that leads to serious health concerns going undiagnosed or without proper treatment. Systemic barriers continue to prevent Indigenous peoples from gaining access to medical training, resulting in their continued underrepresentation in the medical profession. Healthcare in this country is provided in a complex web of local, provincial, territorial, and federal systems. Today, we are speaking the CMA's truth as we know it, but there are many other histories and truths in healthcare that must be explored. Other harms must be acknowledged. We at the CMA will own and continue to build on our understanding of the organization's history, and moving forward, we commit to doing our part to create a better future. We call on all our healthcare partners to do the same. In 2001, the Canadian Medical Association released a 5-part documentary called The Unforgotten, where survivors shared some of the harms that First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples have experienced in the healthcare system. 2 of those brave and generous voices are here with us today, Morningstar Mercredi and Karen Blondin Hall. We thank you for being here. I invite you to bring attention to the screens for the story of the late Sonny MacDonald.
I was born and raised in Fort Chipewyan, Alberta. I'm of the Chipewyan tribe. And at a very young age of 7.5 years old, I caught tuberculosis. And in the classroom, I was coughing up blood on my desk. The nuns decided to send me to Edmonton. We caught a little aircraft, a small bush plane, and the morning after, I was accompanied to the railroad station. And they used to call the train the Muskeg Express, because a lot of that track was built on muskeg. I arrived in Edmonton, and a great nun, I'm assuming she was from the Charles Camsell Indian Hospital. She met me there and took me to the hospital. And about 2 days later, I got surgery, and they removed the upper lobe of my right lung. And after the surgery, I was walking around visiting, and like a young lad that I was, curious about life and everything else. They took it upon themselves, the staff, I don't know who or what, that they should take my pajama bottoms off to prevent me from walking around and going to visiting and everything else. I still used to go run around bare butt and visiting. And one day they came and they said, we're going to put some casts on you. They didn't tell me why or what for. They put a cast just below my knee to just above my ankle on both legs. And they put a bar across about 6 inches apart that prevented me from walking. And that's what I was put in this little room, approximately 10 by 10. There was no window. There's the end of the hallway. I was just like a prisoner, no word of a lie, just the way I was treated. And in order for me to go to the toilet, I had to go hop in such a manner like a penguin to go to the bathroom. And on a few occasions, there was an orderly, and he'd get me into the bathroom, and he sodomized me. I didn't have any schooling there at all. I had no visitors whatsoever in the 2.5 years I was there. Loneliness come upon me many, many different times. And one day out of the blue, they said, we're sending you home. One of the biggest joys in my life is leaving that hospital and going home. In this whole life that I experienced, you will not see any tears in my eyes, for I quit crying a long, long time ago. There comes a point where now, in my lifetime, I'm compelled to tell my story. My name is Sonny James MacDonald, and I want the world out there to know exactly what happened.
The Canadian Medical Association is deeply sorry for the harms First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples have experienced and continue to experience in the Canadian health system. The racism and discrimination that Indigenous peoples and healthcare providers face is deplorable, and we are deeply ashamed. As the national voice of the medical profession, we are sorry for the actions and the inactions of physicians, residents, and medical students that have harmed Indigenous peoples. We recognize the significant power that physicians have historically had and continue to have in the health system. Physicians play a critical role in the provision of health care, and they have obligations and accountabilities to patients, to the health system, and society. As an association, our purpose is to support the medical profession and create a more sustainable, accessible, and equitable health system for all patients and providers. In failing to address systemic anti-Indigenous racism in healthcare, we have failed to fulfill this purpose. We have not lived up to the ethical standards the medical profession is expected to uphold to ensure the highest standard of care is provided to patients and trust is fostered in patients, in physicians, residents, and medical students. We realize we have left Indigenous peoples out of that high standard of care. To Indigenous peoples living in Canada, we apologize to you. We are sorry. We are sorry we have lost your trust and for the harms that you, your ancestors, your families, and your communities have experienced. We acknowledge there are ripple effects on future generations. We take ownership of the CMA's history, and we are committed to righting our wrongs and rebuilding our relationship on a foundation of trust, accountability, and reciprocity. We accept responsibility for the CMA's actions and inactions. We know there is nothing we can do to take back what has been done. We can only move forward, beginning with our commitment to work in partnership and in reciprocity with Indigenous peoples to advance reconciliation in healthcare. We humbly acknowledge that we are on a learning journey. We will make mistakes despite our best efforts, but we commit to acknowledging those mistakes, learning from them, and continuing forward in a meaningful, tangible, and sustained way. This would not be possible without the graciousness of elders, knowledge keepers, and Indigenous partners who have shared their teachings, knowledge, and truths with us. Their courage to trust and take steps alongside us does not go unnoticed. They have guided, pushed, and kindly shared with us, even though it has been, without a doubt, an emotionally, spiritually, and mentally taxing process to relive painful memories and share intimate community knowledge. Their kindness, honesty, strength, and willingness to share will never be forgotten. As we begin our unlearning and relearning, we humbly take these teachings with us and hold them at the forefront of our interactions with Indigenous peoples in the CMA's future commitments and work. L'Association médicale canadienne est profondément désolée des préjudices que les Premières Nations, les Inuits et les Métis ont subis et continuent de subir dans le système de santé.
Sorry for the harms First Nations, Inuit and Métis people have experienced and continue to experience in the Canadian health system. The racism and discrimination that Indigenous patients and healthcare providers face is deplorable, and we are deeply ashamed of that. As the national voice of the medical profession, we are sorry for the actions and inactions of physicians, residents, and medical students that have harmed Indigenous peoples. We recognize the significant power that physicians historically had and continue to have in the health system. Physicians play a critical role in the provision of health care, and they have obligations and accountabilities to patients, the health system, and society at large. As an association, our purpose is to support the medical profession and to create a more sustainable, accessible, and equitable health system for all patients and providers. In failing to address systemic anti-Indigenous racism in healthcare, we have failed to fulfill this purpose. We have not lived up to the ethical standards the medical profession is expected to uphold to ensure the highest standard of care is provided to patients and trust is fostered in physicians, residents, and medical students. We realize we have left Indigenous peoples out of that high standard of care. To Indigenous peoples living in Canada, we apologize to you. We are sorry. We are sorry we have lost your trust and for the harms you, your ancestors, your families, and your communities have experienced. We acknowledge there are ripple effects on future generations. We take ownership of the CMA's history, and we are committed to righting our wrongs on rebuilding our relationship on a foundation of trust, accountability, and reciprocity. We accept responsibility for the CMA's actions and inactions. We know there is nothing we can do to take back what has been done. We can only move forward, beginning with our commitment to work in partnership and reciprocity with Indigenous peoples to advance reconciliation in healthcare. We humbly acknowledge that we are on a learning journey. We will make mistakes despite our best efforts, but we commit to acknowledging those mistakes and to learn from them and to continuing forward in a meaningful, tangible, and sustained way. This would not be possible without the graciousness of elders, knowledge keepers, and Indigenous partners who have shared their teachings, knowledge, and truths with us. The courage to trust and take steps alongside us does not go unnoticed. They have guided, pushed, and kindly shared with us, even though it has been, without a doubt, an emotionally, spiritually, and mentally taxing process to relive painful memories and share intimate community knowledge with us. Their kindness, honesty, strength, and willingness to share will never be forgotten. As we begin our unlearning and relearning, we humbly take these teachings with us, and we hold them at the forefront of our interactions with Indigenous peoples in the CMA's future commitments and work.
I would please ask that everyone, both in the room and online, pause now for a moment of silence.
Every year my drums get heavier. My name is David ʷəŋiʔnəŋ. David ʷəŋiʔnəŋ. Mumernəŋ. Ayonni lauqnunga tautuklunga ananan millu. Atatam millu. Ahamyung qatiptinillu. I learned basic drumming of the art of drumming from my late parents, Mickey and Kaho. It seems like I heard the sounds of drums and chants of the songs of Peet even before I was born. But between the ʷəŋiʔnəŋ, the inland people were my group that sort of live in the vicinity of Anada Lake, which sits right in a tree line, trees, tundra. Long before my time, history tells me there were hundreds. By the time 30s and 40s and 50s, there were less than 100 people. But between 1949 and 1959, that little group of inland people, something terrible happened. They were moved to west coast of Hudson Bay, to Qulliq region, to Qulliq, or Eskimo Point at the time, Rankin, Baker Lake. In the short stay in Eskimo Point, Qulliq today, we were just getting used to living in the coast. We don't even know the ocean is full of salt. It goes out, come back, and it has strange animals. We don't know all that. After we are settled of all the things that happened to us, after all the investigations are done, it was time to meet our fellow Inuit of Qulliq, or Eskimo Point at the time. There was a big drum dance in one of the ʷəŋiʔnəŋ tents. Both ʷəŋiʔnəŋ and ʷəŋiʔnəŋ were drum dancing. It was normal, just like any drum dance. Midway through the evening, something unnatural happened. My father was drum dancing. If you think I'm short, he was shorter than me. He was drum dancing away, and out of nowhere, there was a big commotion on the entrance. civil servant forced himself to grab my father, arm lock him like this, like, please do, and push him towards the ladies who were sitting in a circle. They are the singers of the evening. He was hurt. Music stops, singing stops. Everyone went out all the directions. Not just that, but his drum was also broken by the official. To make a long story short, my mother was, I think, was the backbone of my upbringing. He's strong, sometimes very loud, and she's the one who teaches me how to hunt, shoot my first caribou, how to work with elders, adults, to be nice to your peers, that sort of stuff. My connection to music from both my mom and dad, today I'm still carrying that gift they gave me. When my mother passed away, I was living in Iqaluit by then. Officials called me that you have to come right now, today if you can. Your mother is very ill. By the end of the day, she was now in Winnipeg. And after a day or two, I was given the news that nothing will improve. Doctor said, phone your relatives of the situation and tell us the family decision. After talking to my late brother Silas and Uncle Casimir Nadasung, they all know my mother was full of life. She talked, make friends. She just everyone's favorite person. She won't want to live in bed with wires and tubes all her life. So family decision was to turn off the life support system, which I pass on to the doctor. I accompanied her for the funeral to Oakviet, and it was at Anglican Church at the end of the funeral service. Three or four of her longtime friends whispered to me, "Do you want a drum dance at our house tonight?" I almost said no, but I said, yes, I will be there. The night came. There was my uncle, Casimir, my brother Silas, and me and her friends with caribou tea. And it was time to drum dance. My uncle drum danced first, and then my late brother drum danced too. And it was my turn to drum dance. I was still reluctant. I know I will at least drum dance to maybe one one song. But I remember there were two songs. I was just ready to drum dance, and her friends started to sing for me. I remember the beginning of the drum dance, still very sad. Why am I drum dancing? We just buried my mother today. While I was drumming, I was so focused on their singing and my drumming. And those two songs I hear all the time growing up. Now I'm dancing to them on my mother's funeral. By the time I put down the drum, all that feeling was gone. It's like having a strong medicine that takes effect right away. It was that kind of feeling. I told myself silently that evening, I will pass on their love of drumming and singing until I couldn't drum dance anymore. So today, my 6 grandchildren are quite good drummers and good drumming partners on stage. So I just want to share that. And I like to end by just saying that during my upbringing, I always thought that Inuit language and drumming would never die. All these masters of drum making, drum dancing, composing songs, and singing, they have gone away, passed on. And learning the drum is easy. And song making is a thing of the past now. Because there's lots of unwritten rules for both men and women. So today, I choose to pass on my knowledge, this much of drumming, to anyone, Inuit, non-Inuit, young and old. So I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me here. I hope some of you learn drumming and pass it on to someone near you. Thank you, Matna.
Yeah. danse, kita tamskat na fan would si gaso yan, honi chukskopone kote. Ne me wait in a ki tute yanuta, hegwa ne me wait in a wapat maugaki, I see no wakuta. First of all, I just want to greet you all in my language, the Plains Cree language. My name is Fawn Wood, and I come to you from the Satellite Cree Nation in Treaty 6 territory of Alberta, Canada. I just want to say it's an honor and a privilege to bring in these beautiful jingle dancers here, and I'll share a little teaching about this jingle dance if you haven't seen it or witnessed it before. This jingle dance comes from the Anishinaabe Ojibwe people of Whitefish Bay, Ontario. It came from a vision that came to one of their elders there, the late Maggie White. And this dance was given to her to heal her people. And in today's time, in today's day and age, we see this dance utilized by many different tribes all across Indigenous territory. It's a beautiful way, and the power of this dance is rooted in prayer, and it's rooted in the matriarchal energy that we have in our communities. And we want to offer this dance, this next song for you guys, as a way of uplifting you all today, and a way of sending back some of that mio-matsu and that bei-matsu and that good energy and that life back to each and every one of your communities and all of the communities that you will be in touch with, and the communities that the work you do will affect like that. And we just want to say, at this time, we want to share a sidestep song with you all. That was a short one. That was the short side of the song. We'll share another little song for you guys. Thank you to our beautiful jingle dancers. Let's give them a round of applause. Let this dance remind us of the journey towards reconciliation and the importance of Indigenous healing practices. It's through moments like this that we can begin to address the past and move forward with respect and understanding. And that way, when we want to say, "Ay hay ginanaskumt nawaw, sagit nawaw," we thank you all and we send love to each and every single one of you. Ay hay.
Merci to all the performers. Inuit drummer, Elder David Sequak, hand drummer, Fawn Wood, along with dancers, Dr. Lisa Monkman, Shanley Spence, Cindy Jim, and Gail Pruden. I want to remind people again that health support workers from Sal Tun Lalum Society are available in the room for anyone who feels they need emotional or spiritual support. In addition, the Callwood room across the hall from here is a designated quiet room where you can receive one-on-one support from health support workers. There is also a dedicated health and wellness team present at Mungo Martin House all day. The sacred fire lit this morning will continue to offer a space for reflection, healing, and connection throughout the day. When the Canadian Medical Association first started this work in earnest years ago, it was recognized that getting to this moment would be a hard emotional journey, both for the CMA, speaking as the national voice of the medical profession, and for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in person and online who have experienced harm in the healthcare system. As our president, Jost Reimer, has said, it's hard to witness someone else's pain knowing that we've had a role to play in it, directly or otherwise. A residential school survivor once told me that the reason why survivors don't share their pain is not because they don't want to. It's because they don't believe people are ready to receive it. They are afraid that in sharing, they will experience further harm. So they keep those stories close to them, often reliving those moments alone. What I feel in this moment today is not isolation. I feel solidarity, I feel empathy, I feel hope that things can be different. I believe that feeling not only fills this room, but reaches online to viewers who are experiencing this moment with us. As a child, my mom would always accept my apologies with the same response. Sorry means stop. How do we stop and mitigate the harms that First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples have experienced and continue to experience in the healthcare system? To be truly meaningful, an apology must be accompanied by impactful, sustained action. As an organization and the national voice of the medical profession, we acknowledge that there is a lot of heavy work ahead of us. Most importantly, the CMA recognizes that any actions done to advance reconciliation must be done in partnership and reciprocity with Indigenous peoples. The CMA's Indigenous Guiding Circle has developed an Indigenous health goal that serves as our North Star, guiding us in our reconciliation journey as we continue to build and strengthen relationships with Indigenous organizations, communities, and other willing partners in this work. The Indigenous Health Goal calls on the CMA to ensure Indigenous peoples achieve measurable ongoing improvements in health and wellness, supported by a transformed health system that is free of racism and discrimination, that upholds Indigenous peoples' rights to self-determination, that values, respects, and holds safe space for Indigenous worldviews, medicines, and healing practices, and provides equitable access to culturally safe, trauma-informed care for all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. The CMA pledges to act against anti-Indigenous racism in healthcare and support the medical profession in addressing acts of racism against First Nation, Inuit, and Métis patients and providers. We will recognize and challenge behaviors, practices, and conditions that hinder the healing, health, and well-being of Indigenous peoples. We strongly support the adoption of Joyce's principle, which aims to guarantee all Indigenous people the right of equitable access without any discrimination to all social and health services, and the right to enjoy the best physical, emotional, and spiritual health. We commit to working in partnership and reciprocity with Indigenous people to create and implement a ReconciliACTION plan that will continue to evolve as we move through this journey together. We have taken other key steps in this direction and will continue to build on this foundation. The CMA will continue to support Indigenous-led organizations and actively work to strengthen existing and new relationships. The CMA will continue to support the Indigenous Guiding Circle, an important space within the CMA where First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples inform the CMA's work in Indigenous-specific healthcare and its connections with the broader healthcare system. The CMA will continue to engage with Indigenous peoples, organizations, and communities to expand our understanding of past and current harms and inform our future actions. The CMA will encourage and support other health system partners to reveal their own history and begin their reconciliation work. Our ongoing commitment to meaningful reconciliation will focus on 3 areas. The first is advancing the health of Indigenous peoples. We will continue to co-create and implement initiatives in partnership with the Indigenous Guiding Circle and Indigenous partners to advance more equitable health and allyship with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. The second is supporting physicians' journeys to truth and reconciliation. We will review our Code of Ethics and Professionalism, a foundational document for ethical practice in Canada, with the goal of strengthening provisions related to racism and discrimination. We will support initiatives designed to spark and sustain reconciliation efforts, increasing the recruitment and retention of Indigenous medical students, residents, and physicians, and eliminate anti-Indigenous racism in the health education system. We will support our partners in walking their own paths of reconciliation and creating spaces where First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples and communities are engaged and welcomed. The third is promoting internal reconciliation for CMA employees and leadership. We will continue to build on current Indigenous representation across all parts and at all levels of our organization. We will continue to review our policies, systems, and processes to support a culture of ongoing truth and reconciliation. We will foster a deeper understanding within our organization of Indigenous peoples' rights as identified in international law, constitutional law, and treaties. Moving forward, we recognize that First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples are the experts on their own experience. We affirm Indigenous knowledge, seek to support Indigenous cultures and communities, and recognize and honor that Indigenous peoples' approaches to healing, health, and wellness have existed and flourished since time immemorial. Any actions the CMA takes to advance the health of Indigenous people will be Indigenous-led, guided and designed in a relational, reciprocal, and accountable way. Reconciliation always involves 2 sides. Through apology and action, we can close the distance between us and join hands to find a shared way forward. At the end of the presentation of this apology, we turn the first page of a new chapter in the CMA's history. It's a chapter that we hope First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples can write with us together as we work towards a health system that provides you with the right care at the right time, in the right place, in a good way. I'd like to welcome Elder Mel Hardy, ʷəŋiʔnəŋ, and Elder Terry Barnhart to the stage now for the gifting of the medicine bundle. ʷəŋiʔnəŋ will be performing a prayer song. I would like to remind the media and those in this room that this is a sacred song. We ask you to refrain from recording, and we will be temporarily cutting audio from the live feed. Elder Mel.
That song is a song from the Comox Nation, and my relative may recognize the words within the song, Dr. Evan Adams. And it's a song that I had composed for my relative within the community there. And it was an ask to support the dream of a prayer song with the community. And they provided the words to me, and I created the song to go with it. And feel very blessed and ask for permission at times when I can use that song. So, hi, it's Kasiyam.
Before we close today, I just want to take a couple moments just to acknowledge the Indigenous folks within the CMA who've really carried this work over the last 3 years. If I could just ask Paula, Santanna, and Sarah, if you can join us on the stage, please. Blanketing is one of my favorite traditions. It also gives an opportunity for me to talk about the contribution that everyone's made over the last few years. So Paula, as Vice Chair of the Canadian Medical Association Board, you've been a guiding light in what we've done over the last few years. Just like the fire within Mungo Martin House, you've illuminated parts of the CMA that needed to be seen and took us to places where it was unknown where our next footstep was. Just like a fire, you gave us light, and just like that light, we see you. Paula, Santanna.
We're one brain now.
We are one brain. As a member of the board, over the last 3 years, you have always spoken your mind in a very direct and honest way. Just like a fire, you burned away the performative and left behind what was important. I hope you never, ever change. Thank you for helping us to find the parts of this apology that needed to be there. Sarah. You are the reason why folks within the Indigenous Guiding Circle were willing to give the CMA a chance. We depended on the relationships that you've built over your lifetime, the reputation of your family, and your way with people to gather folks around our fire. Without you, we would not have had an Indigenous Guiding Circle, and we would not have had the many hands needed to lift this work. As a caretaker of the fire and the people around it, we thank you for your work. And finally, to elders Jimmy, Mel, and Marta. It's impossible to overstate how important each of you were in this process and how important the elders that came before you were in this process as well. You grounded us in your teachings and were gracious with your time. You've always been patient and firm with us about what needed to be done. You filled us with purpose, and you filled us with hope. Without you, there is no fire, because you three are the fire. Thank you.
truly feels like a full circle moment. I had the honor of being part of Alika's blanket ceremony when he started his journey as the first Indigenous CMA president. And I can remember how proud I was of you in that moment. And that feeling of pride was felt by Indigenous peoples right across Canada. You are a fearless leader. You lead by example. You lead with humility. We're just all so proud of you. You're just such a great example for Indigenous learners, Indigenous physicians. Over the last 3 years, I've worked very closely with Alika as a colleague, and more importantly, as a friend. And it's really in the quiet moments, away from the spotlight, where he truly shines as a leader. It's through his willingness to support, to mentor, and encourage those around him. So on behalf of the Indigenous Guiding Circle and the Canadian Medical Association, thank you, Alika, for your leadership, your kindness, and your unwavering commitment to this work. Thank you.
As today's presentation comes to a close, I invite those with us in person to reach down to your seats and take hold of the square of duffel wool from the material that wrapped the medicine bundle given to the CMA today. We hope that you take that cloth with you, along with the memories of what happened today. Apologies are just a promise of what may yet be. We all have a role to play in making that promise come true. The sacred fire in Mungo Martin House continues to burn, and you are invited to visit as you reflect and process the events of today. A reminder that wellness supports are available on site and for online guests in the YouTube description. Merci, and thank you for joining us for this historic event.